Yeah! That's right. Look who we have here. One of my favorite drummers, one of my favorite classic rock personalities, someone that influenced me. Oh, it's playing again. There we go. Roger Earl from Foghat. I remember I got Foghat live when it came out. I think, Roger, I was 13 or 14. And the first thing that grabbed me was your beautiful hair, which you still have. I do not. And your mustache at the time. And the playing on that single album is amazing. And years later, when I interviewed you in Frank Sinatra's dressing room for the first time at the Golden Nugget, you explained how that album actually had 2 albums worth of music. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the re-release of Fool for the City. Yeah, lots of stuff. But first, let's give a shout out to your drumstick brand, Sawyers. Let's talk about that. Let's start with the drummers geeking out on gear. Here's Roger's new stick brand.
It was just time for a change. They're double-ended, like the old whatever they were. They sound great. Yeah, Bruce said he's got a drum company down in Houston, and the sticks are fantastic. This weekend's the first time I used them. There's no markings on them at the moment, but he said, take these for a ride and let me know. And I called him this morning. I said, they're great. They're like, and they just feel good. And the cymbals sound great. You know, because you got to play a shuffle, right?
Did you take them for a slow ride? I got to ask.
I did, yeah. Here you go, this one. Just go bang. Oh, stop that.
Yeah, nice. So what is happening with Foghat? You got the re-release of Fool for the City with you on the cover, the original album cover. There's the rest of the band and some not so innocent bystanders. We get some extra tracks with this. Let's talk about this first.
Well, actually, this was the exciting thing about this is Nick Jameson, who was the producer of the Fool for the City album, and our bass player, keyboard player, horn player. He played everything. Don't you hate people like that play everything great? I do anyway. Our record company, or our old record company, found some tapes from 1975. And I remember recording some in Atlanta, and these were done in Detroit at the Aragon Ballroom, I think. The what?
Chicago.
Yep.
Chicago.
Shout out to Linda, by the way.
Yeah. Hello,
we all have our babysitters and handlers. Enja and Linda are kindred spirits because of that.
And Nick was only in the band for a year. He worked on a number of records with us, and it was a fantastic year, but we never had any live recordings of Nick. Anyway, they found some, and I insisted with this record company that they actually let Nick mix it and decide what's going out and what isn't. And Nick and I, he's now living in Reykjavik, and he moved out of the US for a while, but he came back in anyway. And I said, you have to mix this, and we worked it out. And youthful enthusiasm doesn't do it justice. It's like over the top. And I said to Nick, we were a couple of monsters back then. He said, yeah. I said, I can't play quite like that anymore. And he said, neither can I. You know, it's really cool going back in time and listening to stuff. And the sound on this record is fantastic.
Indeed, yeah.
You know, there were room mics and stuff all over the place, and it was a concrete building as well. So it was really kind of weird to get it. You've got all those ambient noises, but
it has kind of that live ambient.
Oh yeah, it's definitely live. Yeah, we were little monsters back then. We were probably having too much fun. I've been accused of having too much fun from time to time.
So did you ever imagine, like, how old were you there on the cover? How old were you? 20s?
No,
26,
25,
28?
28, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever imagine you'd be talking about this album 50 years later?
You know, I hate to use the phrase "one day at a time," but that's what you do. I mean, I rarely think about a week in front of me. You know, with what I've got to do, like with my schedule.
Right.
I
Linda handles that.
Linda and Rose and our crew. We have
Right.
an incredible crew, and we have Rose, of course. Rosemary is Linda's assistant, and Linda. I don't know what we'll do with Linda. Is my girlfriend and my wife.
Right.
And my manager, and I call her the Holy Trinity. Yeah.
Nice. Absolutely. But 50 years later, you know, I've said this over and over and over when I interview people, when we do different shows on Drum Talk TV, and I don't mean this to be insulting to anybody that's out now, but I don't think in 50 years people will be celebrating music that comes out today or last year or 5 years ago. I think there's something that happened between 1965 and 1979 that'll never happen again, where we are indeed still celebrating 50, 60 years of amazing music. And I don't know if it was something in the water, if it was the fluoride, if it was the electrolysis coming off of the power stations, or like what the fuck went on back then where we're all still listening to Foghat, Led Zeppelin, yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Deep Purple, goes on and on and on. But with the newer bands, it's like, yeah, you hear a couple albums and
you know, one of my favorite bands was the Stones. I mean, I grew up around. I'm 79 now. They were 2 or 3 years older than me, but I used to go and see them at the Marquee at Eel Pie Island, and also the clubs in like Twickenham and Richmond and stuff.
right.
And that's, I mean, prior to that, I was listening to, Muddy Waters, but I really started with Jerry Lee Lewis and that, and Little Richard. And then actually I was introduced to Chuck Berry listening to the Stones. I'm going, what is that? Because I hadn't really heard of him. And I'm a Rolling Stone fan, but what is this? Oh, no. It's only rock and roll, but I like it. Right. Yes, I do. I mean, I love the Stones. And you're right. But there again, every generation should have their music.
The soundtrack of their lives, right?
Yeah, just because, I was fortunate enough to sort of play through the 60s and 70s and the 80s. Well, actually, I'm still playing. What is it? It's 2025. Jeez.
September already.
Yeah. It's this is the land. America is the land of music. I first came here in '69, and
was Savoy Brown.
Yeah, it was Savoy Brown. Yeah, and I felt it was magical because I got to play on stages with B.B. King, played on the same stage as Savoy Brown. Wow. And it was like, I mean, growing up in London, the name B.B. King conjured up all sorts of like fabulous pictures of American music, which of course is the blues, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
this is where it all comes from. The blues. That's when it started, and then jazz, bebop, rock and roll, country music, gospel music. Let's not forget Detroit City. I mean, without soul music and, but this is the land of music. This is where it comes from. Even like, the Beatles and the Stones, but they all listen to American music. So this is the home of music. And to this day, America gives music to the world. It still does. It influences every other country. They go, well, who's singing today? I mean, rap, all the contemporary stuff that's going on, which I'm afraid I'm not very good at knowing anything about. And my daughters are all grown up, and I have to talk to my nieces. Well, she's only 4, so
So
But anyway,
let me ask you this. If you think back for a moment, you know, let's not forget the British invasion, but when you think back to the era between 1965 and 1969, what was your record collection like? And how much did like Southern Black rhythm and blues and Northeastern jazz and bebop and Southern jazz, how much did that influence you? I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but what was your record collection like? Who, if you think back and you look at the spines of those albums, who was in your collection that influenced you to want to do what you're doing now, 50 plus whatever years later?
one record that stayed with me forever was Muddy Waters live at Newport.
Oh, yeah. The Newport Jazz Festival.
Yeah. And the drumming on that, Francis Clay, I think,
Yes.
was just fantastic. And I'm learning to play drums. What am I? 14. Well, actually, I didn't get the record until 63. So that was when I was starting. And I'd have two 6-inch speakers side of me. I'd have a wire going into the house, the record player, and my Grundig tape player with all the music on it. Mum would turn the power off at 9 o'clock because even though the room was soundproof somewhat, my dad's woodshed. Thank you, Dad. That's how I learned to play. I couldn't play all the stuff, but I loved the grooves. There was always a shuffle, you know.
Yeah.
And that stayed with me. Everything should swing. Everything should have that and
movement, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
It should have some movement and some groove and like even. And one of the things I noted when I was first growing up, and I would go and see English drummers back then, they would all play, which was fine because it's fine. That's rock and roll too, but
right.
American drummers could swing. That's what I heard on all those records. Just the most simplest things. It's still got, even if you just play 1, 2, 3, 4, it should have that swing. So that's.
I think when I hear you say that, I think back to my parents who grew up in the Happy Days era of America. They were teenagers in the 50s. They were born in 1940. And I actually have videos, Roger, of my parents as teenagers dancing in a sock hop. Even that music then had that shuffle and that swing and that move, right? That whole big band thing was integrated into rock and roll in the early days.
I mean, rock and roll apparently was a dirty word. Well, it's all about being dirty, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. and the good thing about jazz is that you can't screw up because it's just jazz.
My first drum teacher, Chris Hayes. I remember Chris anyway. Actually, I believe he taught the Kinks drummer.
Oh wow! Really?
But he was a jazz drummer and he played with a whole bunch of American musicians that would come over, usually piano players and singers, and him a bass and whoever the American musician was. So he was, a jazzer, and I learned my first book and only book really was Buddy Rich's Drum Rudiments by Henry Adler. I think I got to page 2.
Yeah, I have it back here on my bookshelf. Absolutely. Legendary. So did you start with more jazz playing, or did you start the notch ahead of that when it was integrated to the kind of rock and roll and the swing that we talked about?
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah.
That was the first record that I really heard. Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley's first renditions on Sun Records. Anything on Sun Records. I mean, that was like the golden moment of like rock and roll for me anyway. The stuff that was coming out of there. And I didn't even hear a lot of that stuff until later in life. And I went, whoa, Rocket 88 and stuff like that. It's like, that's what I grew up. Jerry Lee Lewis, my dad, I can tell this story. I've told it many times, but it's true. My dad used to work at the old Aston Martin's factory in Feltham. It was about 3 miles far away. Yeah. And he was a panel fitter, so he would, sometimes he had to take the cars home for lunch, and listen to rattles and stuff. They all rattled back then anyway. So I there'd be this Kingfisher Blue or Red or British Racing Green, Aston Martin, maybe DB24s, I think usually.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
One lunchtime he comes home with a Jerry Lee Lewis record, because Dad played a bit of piano as well, more in the style of like Fats Waller, Alligator Crawl, stuff like that. And he said, "Yeah, have a listen to this boy, son. He can really play the Joanna." And he put on the B side of a Jerry Lee Lewis record, and then we played the front. And I went, "Wow!" And about 2 or 3 months later, what was I, 11 or 12 years old, Dad took me to see Jerry Lee Lewis with my best friend at the time, who was already a bass player in a band, at Mitcham Majestic in southwest London. And there was a whole bunch of my older brother, Colin, of course, was there, who then became a Jerry Lee Lewis fanatic and also took up piano. And Jerry Lee Lewis was the one for me. And I went to see him that night. My 12 or 13 years old. And I went, and that was it. It was.
What was it? What was it? Was it the beat? Was it the melody? Was it the pounding on the keyboards that was just so off the wall?
Well, he was a wild one. That's for sure. No, it was just the music. And of course, Jerry Lee was influenced by, black music, R&B, blues,
right,
and of course, country music as well. But they're all related. They are.
It's all related. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of music. And I've learned that over the years, that actually sometimes when I'm on the plane, there's not a movie I like, or there's not something going on, I'll put on some classical music, and I go, and I'm going through it until I find like a piece that I really went, wow, listen to that. And there's this beautiful movement in it. That's another thing that's really cool. Have you seen the Billy Joel special?
Yes.
Wow.
It's brilliant.
I mean, absolutely brilliant. The way, and the way he creates songs, and it's probably because of his, upbringing on the piano and being a classically trained.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, well, never mind. I went another way. But I love Billy Joel. And everybody should watch that. Everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one from about, maybe 30 or so years ago, maybe even farther, where Billy went to Russia way, way back then. And that was really interesting to bring that music there. But
yeah.
I think that, music fans and musicians really, to understand music, need to dive into, no matter who their heroes are, they need to dive into who their heroes' influences are, because that tells the story, right?
But that takes time.
Yeah.
First of all, you have to get, you have to get through the single stroke rolls first. Lead with your left, Roger. I can't. Lead with your left now. Okay.
Absolutely. Hey, before we go into the membership site exclusively, folks watching live on YouTube or Facebook or on the archive of both, I want to encourage you to join the membership site so that you can get more exclusive info and fun games and all kinds of crazy stuff. There's a discount code where you can get a free year membership. And Roger and I are going to go in the back end. There's a 3D virtual environment there. We can watch us on a screen. I'll put you up on the screen if you have a question for Roger. Otherwise, I'll ask the questions. Or you can click a button and not bother with the 3D aspect. But we'd love to see you there. And Roger, I'm going to click a couple buttons, and then we'll continue our conversation about Foghat, about drumming, about music, about your still amazing hair. But we got to give a shout out. There they are. These amazing albums, these reissues. 50 years later. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
No, yeah, I do. I can't believe it. I'm still here.
There you go.
I'm very earthbound. There it is.
Yeah. And it's a gatefold. Just so you know, it's a gatefold. Whoop. It's amazing. The songs the added songs, like Steven said, our producer in the pre-talk, and the packaging. You got these great liner notes. It's got a great fold-out booklet. It's just, this is so well put together.
And the CD has a couple of extra tracks on it. It has what is it?
Maybelline and Wild Cherry.
Wild Cherry and what?
Maybelline.
When Nick and I first started listening to them, they're so frantic. Nick's he would be talking to me after he'd done some rough mixes and say, "I can't do much with this, Rog. It's just like this, like frantic, youthful enthusiasm. Nothing quite like it."
How cool is it, though? I mean, seriously, to have Rod Price and Lonesome Dave Preverett embodied in this reissue. It's just so precious to have them, you know.
Well, yeah, but the real joy for me on this record is having Nick Jameson playing bass, who was also the producer. There was never,
and keyboards,
other than the Fall for the City album, which he played and produced. There's no other live recordings of him, and we were having so much fun. Nick is one of those brilliant musicians who can play everything really well, and was tons of fun. Like making the record, it would be, let's do this, let's try this, let's try that. And sometimes after we got the arrangement down to the song, it'd be one take, rarely more than two, never more than three. And except the Fall for the City track, when we were recording that, we had the arrangement down, and we're going through it, and then Nick would go, "Want to try this?" And then, or Dave would say, "Let me try this here," or Rob would say, "I want to do this bit." That was the one song don't know, man. But every time we played it, we'd find something new we wanted to do, and it wasn't because we didn't like what we'd done. All of a sudden, we were saying, "Let's do this. Let's put an acoustic guitar in here. Let's do this." Whereas, like most of the stuff, it's like just the four of us playing, and then afterwards, redo the vocals and maybe a tambourine or something to shake, because I like to do stuff like that. But that was the one song that we really had fun with.
Did it sort of like ignite like an idea factory way of thinking to just embellish a bit?
Yeah, that's Nick Jameson, our producer. He's an incredible human being. He's an actor. He does voiceovers. He plays just about everything under the sun. If he doesn't play it, give it to him and he'll be playing it within half an hour. Don't you hate people like that? Don't you hate them?
They just pick up any instrument and master it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like us poor mere mortals stick to one because two's like a little bit over the top.
That's hilarious. All right, folks. So Steve put in the comments how you can join us in the membership site. We'll continue the conversation. I'm going to click a couple buttons, and then I have even more questions for Roger. Yes,